I lived with my dad in Malibu back in the early 2000s. He was filthy rich and was a successful businessman who owned a lot of small recording studios. Small, but he must have had 15 plus, giving him a generous income. I haven't been in over 10 years now, but from what I remember, it was a large, luxurious mansion-esque house. Probably second tier behind the real big shots like musicians and, obviously, Charlie from 2.5 Men. It was a large, modest house which, in the midst of other prime real estate, stayed hidden and under the radar. The house was like a prison from the outside. Huge, sand-coloured walls loomed over the sidewalk with an air of safety over aesthetics. Slick and smooth, and damn near impossible to climb. The drive was a decent size, and huge black electric gates in an almost baroque style added to the fashionable look of the Jaguar in the drive. One night, at around 2 AM, my dad was called into the local police station. I remember the night well, and my dad had to leave as one of his studios had been burnt down. From what he told me a week or so later, it looked to be arson. My dad woke me and left. I was scared being only 13, but the Guardian gates put me at ease. I put on the TV to distract myself. Soon, I did something I've never been able to explain. I had a moment where I didn't actually hear a sound at all, but felt as though I did. I know I didn't, but the feeling made me check. I looked out my window, which was above and left of the drive, to see 2 men, both wearing balaclavas and one with a crowbar, the other with a gun, crossing the grass on the right side. I slowly backed away and called my dad, as he was at the police station. This was the first time I truly realised my dad was a terrible person. He answered with a curt, "Not right now, Josh. Go to bed," and hung up. I phoned up twice more. It just rung out with no answer. I was really upset and annoyed, and this is a barrier me and my dad still, to this day, haven't passed. I hauled my double bed across the room, struggling the entire way, and pushed it against the door. I then, somehow with the force of the Hulk, lifted up a large chest of drawers, full of clothes, toppled it onto the end of the bed, and pushed that close to the door. I grabbed my phone and dialed 911. The lady who answered was calm and collected. I was not. I managed to explain myself through heavy breaths of panic and my own racing thoughts. Then, I heard it. The porch window smashed, the door opened and the alarm began to sound. The operator registered my silence as I cut off mid-sentence and could hear the alarm. Her calm, collected nature, now a distant memory as panic broke into her manner. Footsteps raced up the stairs in a flurry of thunder, and I slid silently under my bed. I, rather rudely but given the situation acceptably, told the operator to shut up, the shrill alarm still sounding. One of the men said to the other that they don't have much time and to leave this room and check the others. I heard a set of footsteps walk away. I then heard creaking and pressure being applied at the base of the door. A voice came from my level.
"You're lucky, kid."
The man stood and I heard a second set of footsteps. I wet myself under the bed and was hyperventilating. I was as pale as a corpse. Looking at my hands, I looked dead. I lay there for God knows how long until I heard the men leave. Not even 5 minutes later the police turned up, followed by my dad. I thanked the operator and she left. The police were asking me questions and checking I was okay. My dad, being the selfish pig he is, was only concerned about the well-being of his rare and signed instruments. They got off with a lot, including a guitar signed by Jimi Hendrix, a Fender if my memory serves me, and half a drum set, including the kick drum, signed by Buddy Rich. He never asked if I was okay, which was really the last straw, but that's another story. They never caught the guys, and that doesn't really bother me as much as it should. What the man said to me under the door, though, what gave me away, if anything?
This happened about 2 or 3 years ago. I decided to go on the roof of my house at night with my little sister, who is 3 years younger than I. My parents screamed at us to not go on the roof because it was late, but we did anyway. After my sister got on the roof, I climbed up and was feeling really bad vibes. I looked at my sister, who was crouched down picking at the moss on the tiles of the roof. I turned around and looked at my neighbor's house and my shadow, but then saw something that scared the crap out of me. It was a darker shadow than my own, with long hair and a long dress. I could see all her fingers. At first, I thought it was my little sister, so I called Hannah's name while staring at the shadow. I saw her stand up, and she was shorter than the shadow person, standing between us. I panicked, rubbing my eyes and blinking to see if what I saw was real. With my sister still standing, she asked me, "What's wrong?" "Hannah," I said, "look at the wall of the house." And she saw it, too. At this point, I was breathing super heavy, and my sister, being the sensible one, asked what it was, and we turned around to only see, but we didn't see the shadows of the trees on the wall. At this point, my sister started freaking out too, and when I realized that what I saw was real, I screamed and rushed down the ladder, ran into the house, and couldn't stop crying. My sister came down after me, the same condition as myself, crying, but she seemed less freaked out. Years later, she told me while she was going down the ladder, she heard a voice say, "Stop." And that freaks me out, because she also stayed up there a little longer than I did. I don't know what that was, but the shadow was darker than ours. In my house, we sometimes get the sensation of floating above our bed, but it's always different. My mom gets the sensation of getting dragged off her bed. Recently, summer of 2015, I felt my body float in the air and spin slowly. I had pressure on my lungs, and I was trying to scream my mom's name, but couldn't. I never realized this until now, and this freaking gives me even more anxiety. But I saw a black body, bent over, looking at me. My mom didn't believe me. Also, I remember once I was trying to sleep in my room after being randomly terrified before I fell asleep. And I kept on trying, opening my eyes while I was asleep. And every time I did, I saw a black figure of a person going back and forth past my eyes with the lights on. I kept the lights on before I went to sleep that night because I felt scary energy coming from a corner of my room. I don't know if any of these incidents are related, but just from remembering the past, I think they might be. There is even more weird stuff I could tell, but this is already way too long.
I'm closer to my siblings than anyone else I know, which is strange because we're only half siblings. I have brothers with the same mom but different dad, and two brothers and sisters with the same dad but different mom. It's my brother with the same dad as me that I'm the closest to. He's 2 years younger than me, but it really doesn't bother us. It's almost as if we're more friends than we are brothers. I've told him things that I haven't told anyone else, and vice versa. I even consult him on my YouTube videos. I'm not sure why we're so close. Might have to do with the fact that since we were young, we've experienced the paranormal together. Like when I was 11 and he was 9. Our dad had to go work in the middle of the night for an emergency. It was suspected someone broke into his work, which housed very expensive equipment, so he had to check it out. Anyway, he was gone nearly an hour, and in the middle of the night, we heard the front door open, loudly. The fridge then opened and closed, then footsteps coming towards us. Then, when I was 13 and he was 11, and we saw a shadow man at our grandparents' house fly towards my brother. Our grandparents' house was always a site of paranormal activity. In fact, our cousins who lived there at the time always saw shadow men in their room throughout the house. There was also many times when I would wake up to see tall shadow men watching me sleep when I slept on the couch. Anyway, we always experienced things, and we had been through a lot together. Because of this, I can always tell when he's lying or not, and when he's truly scared. That's how I knew he was serious when he told me that he'd seen someone in the basement. So we both grabbed a baseball bat and went down there. You see, the way the basement's spread out, it's basically 2 rooms divided by a wall, with one side the stairs, the washing machine, and the dryer, and on the other side just some old equipment my dad uses sometimes. And on the side of the stairs and the washing machine and dryer, there's a little tiny room. We never go into it because we've always been afraid of it. But when we were down there, we heard a noise coming from that room. So, slowly, my brother went up, pulled the door open, and I, with the baseball bat, ran in first. I swung it around, and all I hit was a couple of boxes, which I felt pretty bad for, because they might have been important. But it was fine. The only thing, there was nobody in there. But we saw someone run up the stairs. Obviously, me and my brother followed. And when we got upstairs, what we saw was a black shadow man standing by the pool table. When we got closer, though, he disappeared. This was by far the scariest thing me or my brother have ever experienced, which is saying a lot. Anyway, when our dad got home, we told him. He told us that it wasn't the first time this thing had been seen in the house, and that he'd seen it multiple times, even when nobody was home but him.
Last year, my family and I went camping in upstate New York. We were in a very isolated area with a thick forest. My dad and I decided to go hiking, and when we got pretty far into the woods, the path got much narrower, so I started to walk behind him. Suddenly we heard a voice coming from up ahead, yelling, "Dad, Dad, come here quick." The voice sounded just like mine. My dad whispered, "What was that? It sounded just like you." "I think we should leave," I whispered back. We turned around and jogged back up the trail until we were in the area where the trail started to widen again. We kept walking until we reached our campground. We told the others in our family what had happened. Some believed us but tried to come up with a rational explanation, and some thought we were joking. I wanted to leave the campground and go home, but my dad wasn't really frightened anymore and suggested that we stay. I didn't sleep well that night because I was so afraid. The weather turned bad the next day, so we went home pretty early anyway. As we were leaving, my dad was telling me that he heard the same voice that sounded just like mine, calling to him from outside the tent in the middle of the night. It wasn't me, and no one else heard it. He didn't tell me until we were leaving because he didn't want me to get even more scared. But to this day, I don't know what to think.
When I was little, I used to enjoy playing with my older sister and younger brother. We used to have so much fun. We always used to get into fights and argue for no reason. You know, sibling type stuff. Other than that, I got along with them okay. My older sister had a lot of girlish type toys, and since my younger brother and I had no toys of our own to play with, or any boy type toys to even use, we would always play with our older sister's favorite toys. Of course, there was one toy my sister loved the most, and it's still to this day her most favorite toy, or at least was, considering the fact I don't really know what she's been up to all this time. Anyways, she had this little fuzzy pink teddy bear with a big brown and yellow eyes and a big black nose shaped like a heart. The name of my sister's teddy bear was Jessica. My older sister absolutely loved that bear, but my younger brother and I were never allowed to play with her, unless our grandma and older sister were watching us carefully, or even our mom. Years went by, and my brother and I were now in elementary school, but we were both still living together at our grandma's house. However, our sister was no longer living with us at our grandma's house, and my younger brother and I felt kind of lonely. We almost felt like crying as we both looked at our older sister's old toys and she used to play with us. All that changed when we decided to keep our older sister's toys and use them as a tribute to her, sort of just as a momentum. Not that she was dead or anything, it's just a, thing. I know that sounds strange, yeah, I know, but my brother and I were just kids and we missed our sister a lot. Anyways, skip ahead about 8 or 9 years, and that's where my story really begins. I was a young high school senior, and I had just recently graduated. My sister came to my graduation. I was so happy. I was finally reunited with my sister. We had lots of fun, and my younger brother was jealous that I got to spend so much time with our older sister. But I knew somewhere in my younger brother's heart, he missed our older sister too, and he wasn't jealous. He just wanted attention. Anyway, sometime later, my sister had to pack her things and move away again. I felt sad because I was going to start college soon. So I decided to go with my mom, dad, and younger brother to Vegas so I could spend one more time with my older sister before she moved. My younger brother and I sat in the back of our mom's minivan with our sister, and we talked to her and spent a lot of time with her. After we arrived in Las Vegas, I began to cry, and my younger brother began to cry too. We drove around Las Vegas for a while, and we went sightseeing. After that, we arrived at our aunt's house and dropped off our sister. We talked to our older sister for a while, but only for a few minutes, and helped her unpack her stuff. Once we helped her finish unpacking her stuff, my younger brother and I went with our parents to find a hotel and stay for a couple of days. However, 2 days later, we all arrived back at our mom's house. I started to feel like something wasn't quite right. My younger brother felt the same way, and I could see the worried look of fear in his face. Eventually, we both decided to just ignore the feelings we had and focus on doing fun stuff instead. We played some PlayStation 2, PlayStation 3, Wii, and with our Nintendo DS's together. After my brother and I got off the video game consoles, we watched some TV and movies. Our parents decided to have their own fun and went out for the whole day. Before they left me and my brother on our own, so they could go out, they gave us some money for pizza and told us to call 911 or them in case something happened or if there was an emergency. My brother and I agreed to the terms of our parents and they left to go out. While we were at home, my brother and I decided to watch some TV. We argued over what shows we wanted to watch and who got to use the remote. But all that stopped when we heard a strange noise coming from our sister's room. My brother went to go check, and that's when things got terrifying. I quickly went into our old sister's room, our sister's old room, and saw my brother standing on a puddle of what looked like blood. And in the blood puddle was our cats, dead. They had been decapitated and torn apart to the point in which we couldn't identify them. Just then, my brother saw something sticking out of the body of one of our dead cats. He picked it up and showed me. It was a piece of paper rolled up neatly and covered in blood. I ignored the feeling of the sticky blood on my hands and unrolled the paper to reveal a letter written in blood. The letter read, "Let's play together." My brother and I started to freak out, thinking it was a prank. We both accused each other, but then as we looked at the writing, we could see it wasn't in our own handwriting, but in a child's handwriting. We didn't know what to do, or what was happening, but we decided to solve this problem together. Unfortunately, it didn't take much time to solve this spooky little mystery, because we were about to find something shocking and traumatizing for both of us. As we exited our sister's room, the walls began to rot away, and a thick layer, like a thick gooey looking substance, presumably blood, began to ooze down the walls and the roof. My brother and I looked at the walls and noticed they all began to crack and break apart. What the hell was going on, and who wrote that letter? Another thing that scares me, our parents never came home that night, and our sister never contacted us from Vegas. To this day, we still do not know what happened. I'd rather not think about it. I'd rather not think about it than... And... what the hell? Oh shit, oh shit, shit. No. We left that house. How'd you find me?